I think we talk a lot about the player and how the shoe revolves around the player, and we don't really focus a lot on the designer. And so I kind of wanted to touch base with you because it's been there are 9 shoes.
Yeah.
How have you seen your design aesthetic change and grow with each shoe, especially with this one?
I think it's definitely evolved every year, and with him, and I try to like remove myself from it a little bit and just be more of a sponge, and something that like I always try to be an open book and writing new chapters in it. And so like I don't try and get stuck on a certain style. I hope. I know there's some people who like see a shoe and like, I know that's a Leo shoe, and I find that kind of weird. I don't even think about it that much. I guess I'm just always trying to like push myself to do something different and new. And I think I wanted just the shoe to mature with him from a design standpoint, from performance-wise to the style. You look at where we are here, it's definitely a lot more grown and a little bit more sophisticated, I think, than where he's been in the past, So I think it's a reflection of him, I just want to make sure that I'm not necessarily like putting my own personal stamp on it, like it has to be.
But it's obviously something you're very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Like I put my heart and soul into it, and I work my hardest to execute. So, but if it happens to be that those two things cross, it's great. But I think it's really about him first.
But it's not necessary.
There's no Leo Easter eggs.
His signature's not on the back of the tie.
No.
You prefer people would say that's a KD shoe, not a Leo.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, his name's on it. It's called the KD. It's not called the Leo. So. Yeah, it's about him, not me.
Have you ever thought about doing your own line?
Yeah.
Leo line?
It'd be so hard to design for yourself, I think, I don't know. I never
The
thought
Nike
about
lab starts training.
Has there ever been a time he's come to you and said, "Hey, Kobe has this or LeBron has this. I want it"?
For sure.
And
Like
The Flyknit, right? Yeah.
The Flyknit was.
He said that on the Kobe, yeah. But just as far as smaller detail, I mean, the Zoom bag obviously from LeBron 10 was a pretty big factor, I would think, on this.
Yeah,
but
he, especially early on, he was checking out all the guys' shoes. He would have them, and try them on, playing them, and just get a feel. And I think that was really good too, because like you want him to get the sense of like what other players are wearing, so that he can then inform like what he likes and doesn't like about them. And then that helps us have a better communication, like because if all he knows is his shoe all day long, then it's like. He doesn't know anything else.
What to evolve to.
What to evolve to. Because I still have a sample in my office of like the Kobe 5s that he wore. He just shredded them. Like there was like a part where he had his fifth metatarsal bone here. Like that part was like split open and all that stuff. And so like I learned from that. I'm like, oh, okay, look what he did to that shoe. Obviously, it didn't meet his needs there or here and there. So like for me, it's a good learning thing too, to see what he liked and didn't like. And on the 6 Elite, we actually used that
Zoom bag,
right?
Yeah.
He always wanted that full length bubble, and when he tried it, he first like loved it, and then as he started wearing more and more, it just like didn't feel right. He just felt kind of sluggish in it. It felt like he was swimming in mud in some ways, And so I think for me that was awesome because like I got to learn from that and build a better Zoom bag, which
with the articulation, so it wasn't as blocky and
so the transition's really smooth. It doesn't feel clunky and heavy for him. And so I mean, like I enjoy the failures, or I don't even know if you consider that a failure, but
the
I
efforts.
Think, like I think it's been really good learning experiences for us to see the goods and bads of things. So.
What's it like being in Austin with KD?
It's cool. I've never been in Austin with KD, so it's actually pretty cool. I haven't been here since actually when I was doing running shoes at Nike. Like I think I was last year, like 13 years ago or something like that. So I think a lot has changed. I've always wanted to come back here and check out South by Southwest or something, or like I heard a lot of great things. And the food here is amazing.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
So far so good.
Stubbs is delicious.
Oh, is it? Try it out. So it's exciting I want to definitely step on UT campus at some point. I went there last time when I was in running, but different, But I didn't actually check out the basketball court at the time. So I just want to see what the legacy he left behind here.
Shaka's got it turned around.
Yeah.
Big time. Everybody down here is really excited about
Yeah.
that.
So Kevin mentioned before that like he loves the fact that you guys have like a really good, tight working relationship, and he can just call you by the blue, like, "Hey, I want this."
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time? And you're a pretty open-minded
Yeah.
guy. Just when I've taught you before, has there ever been a time where you're just like, "Yeah, that's impossible. No way we could do that," or is that just not in your vocabulary?
You know, there's some things that are maybe not right at the time, and then so I put it in the memory banks, and I'm like, okay, I can't forget about that, and because I know at some point he was gonna ask, like, remember when I said this, or like, you know, and so I always try to like remember it and try and find the right time for it, you know, and so some things might just be like not ready yet, you know, like the Flyknit thing. He told me that a while ago, like he wore the Flyknit racers. The running shoe.
Yeah.
I think it was when he was in London.
Yeah, 12.
He wore it, and he loved the shoe. And I was like, well, okay, I gotta figure out how to make that into a basketball shoe then. And so that takes time. And Kobe got into it, so like that helped, you know, kind of get into basketball, into a lateral
testing,
sport,
yeah.
and all that. And then now it's just like making it right for a player like him, you know. So yeah, I mean, it just takes time to like. To bring some of his ideas to life too. You know?
Is that something that you actually just like remember, or do you have like a file on like Kobe and KD?
KD.
Because I just like if I got like random phone calls like, "Hey, it's Flyknit time," I might forget that a year later.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, sometimes, well, a lot of times it would be text. So
Okay.
there's a trail, you know, and I think, but I do remember it a lot, you know, I'll just, because I'm always, when he says it, I'm always like, okay, how do I do it? How do I do it? And then, so like, kind of embeds itself into my head. And so, kind of like can't forget sometimes.
Right.
And I also want to make sure that when I have conversations with him, he's not like, hey, remember when I said this? I'm like, nah, I don't remember that. You know, so I don't want to be that guy, you know, so.
He's got his phone scrolling very fast through the text.
Yeah,
Whoa,
like,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
yeah, you said that. So, yeah.
What was the most difficult thing about creating this sneaker?
This was probably the hardest shoe I've ever designed in my career. It was definitely hard. A lot of aspects of it, like a lot of it had to do with the Flyknit. You know, it was such a new technology for me to work with. Like, I thought the Flyweave was also really hard because again, it was different vocabulary, speaking about, you know, like weft versus whatever. You know, like just the
jargon.
The jargon, and I was like, what? It was like kind of had to go back to like 101 of materials and stuff. So this was again another one, and even more complicated. And working with amazing engineers, getting my thoughts across was really fun. But it was a partnership there. You know, it was like I learned so much from those guys, and so for me it was like an accelerated learning curve of like learning the technology. But then also like there's some things that I think I struggled with a little bit on the design side, was because early on he actually asked for like a mid chucker kind of height on the shoe, and the way I had it designed, it was just like, it was okay, you know, and then he tried on, that was the first sample that he actually tried on last summer, and he liked it, liked the overall shoe. The zoom bag was the same, the knit was the same, it was just this part that was different. And so when he tried to play for a couple hours in it, and the way he was, his ankle was moving, like the collar would just splay open every time he kind of bent his ankle, and he came back and was like, yeah, it's kind of weird how it's gapping open and all that stuff, and I was like, all right, I gotta figure that out, and kind of just went back and forth, and it just wasn't looking right either, and so finally I was like, okay, you know what, I need to just like start blank slate from here back and figure that out, and maybe come up with something a little bit more integrated. It felt a little choppy too, the way that the design was going at the time, and so after
had he asked for that level?
Yeah, we asked for it at that level. He asked for it on the 5 back in the day, and but that was like just something where I was like, it wasn't really fitting you right, and then also wasn't looking right. What if we try something like this? And so that's where I created some samples of that, and then he was like, okay, cool, let's try it, and let's do it. And he was open about it, so it was a conversation, you know. It was like I tried to explore what he was into, and then it just wasn't working.
Was there any discussion about like adding a sleeve?
Onto this?
Yeah.
No, not at the time. Not for this, not for design. So, Yeah, so that was definitely hard. Just kind of like my own personal struggles with everything that was going on with that collar, and how that was fitting and looking just wasn't working. So I had to go back to the drawing board, you know. So yeah.
Can I ask you sort of a random question about the Elite line
Yeah.
in general? So when we talked to you in New York, we were
Yeah.
talking about the sock, you know,
Yeah.
sort of attached and how crazy that was. And then we saw KD wear them, and he wore those really high ones
Yeah.
that you mentioned. And you mentioned how it was sort of an experimental chance for you guys. But if you look at KD and you look at LeBron and then the Kobe line, and it became Elite just all the time. There was no like playoff special edition. Do you see that continuing for your signature guys as a place for you guys to experiment, or maybe phasing that out because they don't end up wearing it for very long, you know, because they just are on to the net, like we saw LeBron move on to the Soldiers in the finals?
It's a good, really good question. I think we will have a 9 Elite, but, you know, we're always going to look to, like, hey, you know, reevaluate the whole line and the whole concept of it, too. And so you may see it evolve and change, you know, when it launches, how it launches, or what it is, and all that stuff. So it's got to be a revolving, because, you know, when we started this, it was definitely like these concept cars that were using the best of the best technologies. Now we're almost at that point where we are like using the best of the best. So, you know, I think stuff like that high sleeve was definitely crazy, like silhouette-wise. There was definitely functional benefits to it, but also look-wise was not something you've seen before. So it was just something we wanted to try.
I've worn it. It's weird.
Yeah.
It feels cool after a while, but at first you're just like, something seems weird. Yeah.
Yeah, another guy wore it, and he loved it. So it's definitely polarizing, you know. Some people love it, some people hate it. So it's like, you know.
I guess when I saw KD wear it, I thought it would be like a little bit more lockdown.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of just a bit superficial.
Yeah.
In terms of like.
It's more of like a compressive type than it is.
Like almost like a higher ankle thing, you know, not an actual ankle.
So like the purest concept is when you go all the way up to your knee, you get the full leg
on
compression, you know, and that's when you really feel it. But I think the majority of people would not want to wear that, you know. So, so yeah, you know, it's just,
I would totally wear that.
WearTesters.